Calvin. This is my first YouTube channel and I thought it'd be a good time to start, only because I just finished my second official semester of nursing school and I'm so excited to be done. It was a stressful semester, but I just wanted to talk about how I passed, how I started from the bottom and came up and made a better grade than I expected. I am not the best test taker, I've never been, but here I am and I made it. So I thought I'd just like share about my semester in fundamentals of nursing and how I passed. I know in the beginning I did not do so well in the first test, and that was definitely really hard to deal with. I know that when I take tests I overthink every single question that I do, and you know, that's normal, it happens. So my first tip is for if somebody is just starting fundamentals in nursing or you are already struggling in fundamentals in nursing, do not be discouraged. I feel like people, it's either they do so good in fundamentals or it's that class that you think it would be the easiest, but really it's just like these little details that maybe you're not grasping, or it's a lot of practice or anything like that. For me, I felt like I understood the information very well, but I had a hard time applying it. So I did really good in lab. I always, you know, I passed the NG2 placement, Foley catheters, wound care, bed bath, all that fun stuff. But when I got to the test, I was like, what in the world is going on? Like, why can't I just do well? I've never been really a good test taker, like I said, but that's okay. You know, not everybody's like that. I noticed for my first test, I'm gonna be very honest and very straightforward. For my first test, I got a 64, and I was like, oh crap, what am I gonna do? Like, how can I, you know, how can I get through this and like do okay? And so my first step and my first piece of advice is if you don't get the test grade that you're expecting, or your skills aren't up to par, or you just feel really stuck, talk to your instructor. It's kind of common sense. I know probably a million people have said this, but it really does. And I know some instructors are more approachable than others. Luckily for me, my instructor was very approachable and very sweet. And she gave me the best advice I think I've ever gotten. I feel like I'm doing okay, and then my grade did not reflect the hard work that I put into my studying and all my skills. And she told me, when you're doing a test, do you sit there and think about it? And I told her, yeah, I do that a lot. And she's like, don't do that. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, think of your brain as a shelf in the library with multiple books on it. You have the question in front of you, and instead of picking a million books to answer that one question, you grab that top book on the top shelf that has the answer to it. So it's kind of like you're like taking that little book that nobody seems to be grabbing, and you dust it off and you look through it. And so pretty much what she was saying was, you need to narrow down what you already know instead of taking information from different sources, different things in your mind and overthinking it, when the question really is just asking a very straightforward topic. Now, not every question is like this, of course, but I really feel like that's really helpful, and I really took that to heart. I met with my teacher. I really started to take her advice, and instead of overthinking every little detail, I did exactly what she told me to do. And so I also wasn't taking the best notes for the first test. I was kind of just like reading through and hoping for the best, because like with first test you don't know what to expect. So I was like, I'll probably be okay, but really I wasn't. So instead of how I was taking my notes, where I was just, you know, using the PowerPoints I used in class, I used the PowerPoints that they had in class. And of course, like if you're familiar with PowerPoint, in the notes section, the teacher might have little brief things that they have typed up, and I always added that into an outline in my notes. And usually, you probably know the strategy of taking your PowerPoints, turning them into an outline, into a separate doc, whether you do Google Docs or Microsoft Word or whatever it is, and you copy and paste all that, and then use your notes from there. Because I don't know about you, but I hate PowerPoint. I hate the layout. I hate how like individual everything is put. I don't like that. I like to be able to see it all kind of all together in one little thing, and that way I have like room for the margins to write what I want, but it makes more sense for me in the future. So what I usually did was do that, and anything that my teacher put in her notes underneath the PowerPoint slides, I would always put in a different color, and that was really helpful. And then in the lectures, because of COVID, we had our lectures virtually. Well, I went to class, but we did more like interactive things, but she would send us a recorded lecture where we could listen to it on our own time. And I really liked that because I was able to like go back to it. And so when I would listen to it, I would annotate, put what I needed in one color with what my teacher said. And then I also started reading the textbook. And for me, I do learn better when I read things over and over again, or write things over and over again. So I would write anything from the textbook in a different color, and that way I could see similarities with what my teacher said in one color and what the textbook had said in the other color. And then anything in the PowerPoint was just in black. And that really helped me to see anything that seemed to keep coming up and see anything that seemed really important. Also with my notes, I noticed that I thought I would start something a little different too with the outline. In a bright red color or bright blue color, just something that like pops out at me. I would write the title of a PowerPoint, I would write it as a question, and then anything in the bullets I would use as the answer. So writing the PowerPoints more as a question format instead of just like a normal format that it is, it made me think of it in a test way instead of just reading it and understanding it. It kind of helped me see it in a different light, and that was really helpful. And then test 2 came along. Here we go again. I was so terrified, and when I went to test 2, I ended up getting a 72, and I was really excited about that. 72 is still not where I wanted to be, but 72 is about 10 points more than what I had. So I was like, okay, there's progress. I did a little bit better than I did, on the first test. And so I did a little bit more of what I was doing, and test 3, I ended up getting a 78. And I was like, oh my goodness, here I am getting a little bit better. It's not a B or an A like I would like, but it's something. And I always got A's on like quizzes we had online, on certain topics that we had in class, or I got A's on my skills. I got A's on things that I was good at, but tests were just not my thing, no matter what. And at my school, for whatever reason, we're not allowed to have our tests given back to us, so we don't know what we got wrong, which is definitely a con. I hate that, but I also think it's a pro in the way that we don't focus so much on the test and like how bad we did on it, but more like, what do you think you got wrong? And that kind of helps you kind of like progress more. Instead of focusing on a test so much, you focus on like everything that you could work on in the future. And I just had my finals a few weeks ago, and I was so nervous for the final. I was like, I would love to keep a B in the class, because with all the other quizzes and assignments that I had, it helped me to get a B in the class. And I had an 81 at the time. And then I got my final grade back. The final, I studied the exact same way that I was doing, but I pretty much took all the study guides I made and the documents and made them into one big document. And I made sure to make sure I had everything, like especially if the teacher mentioned table 2.1 in chapter 2 or something in the textbook, I made sure to copy and paste it, because we had we had like an e-textbook. If you're able to have that, I would definitely recommend to look at any type of charts or tables that your teacher mentions, because they're not just wasting their breath. Apparently those tables and charts are gonna come back. And I really felt like on the final, most of the questions were from charts and tables, and that really was helpful because I'm definitely more of a visual, hands-on person, so being able to see in a virtual way or visual way, it was definitely helpful for me. My goal was to get an 85 at least, and I got exactly an 85 on the final, and I was really proud of myself. For me, being an A student on tests is just not realistic. I used to get A's on tests when I took like biology and anatomy and physiology, and just any type of classes like that, your prereqs. But when you get into nursing, different people are good at different things. And me, I'm just not a test person. I never will be. I just second guess myself too much. And I think that's okay to be that type of person, is to be realistic with yourself. If you know that you are not the best test taker, be realistic and know that you could get a B on this test and it's okay. But if you try to have your goal be higher than you know you can achieve, then sometimes that pressure is a little bit hard on you. And you can have your goal be a little bit less than what you would like, and if you can reach that, then you can reach your goals even higher. I hope that makes sense. Now, if you're a student that is looking for an A, this video is not for you. I don't have tips for you to get an A, but I have tips that could really help you to see the growth that you can have. I started out as a D student and made up to a B, and I was very proud of myself with that. And I had an A in the clinical portion of it, which I feel like is a little bit more important, just because it's actually the hands-on version where you're going to the hospital, you're interacting with your patients, you're writing patho papers about your patient and doing care plans, and just you're learning information in a way that's not just a test. And I feel like that is gonna be the growth factor in who you are as a nursing student, is what you actually are doing instead of what you're studying all the time. Of course, knowing your stuff is so important. It's gonna make you an even better nurse, but I feel like you being as a nursing student, it's also important to know what you're good at, what you need to improve in, what you can do to make yourself better, ask questions, and it's okay to mess up. I'm definitely a perfectionist when it comes to everything I do, so I need to listen to my own advice in this video, but just know it's possible, and it's gonna be hard to maybe start off on the wrong foot, but you can get there. So my tips are: ask questions to your instructors, get advice from them. Even if it's not helpful, at least you tried. Try different studying techniques and see what really works for you. Take what your teacher says in their notes very seriously, because they're not just wasting their breath. And also be realistic with your expectations. Don't try to succeed in something you know you're not good at until you get to the point where you meet your lowest standards and you can get higher. Because if you start here, you can only go higher. But if you try to start high, you're gonna sometimes fall short, and that can discourage yourself. So do not get discouraged if you do mess up. I know it's easier said than done, but just know it's okay. Fundamentals is literally the foundation of everything that you're going to be doing. And also pathophysiology, of course. Just all of that together is going to be the foundation to what you're about to do. So just keep going. I know it's hard to believe in yourself sometimes. It's hard to not feel discouraged sometimes. And also, another piece of advice that just came to me is do not compare yourself to others. Me, myself, am guilty of this. I always compare myself to other nursing students and how they're doing in their classes, and it's so discouraging when you feel like you're like, oh man, why can't I be like them? It's so hard. But just know it's okay, and every single person's different, every nurse is different, every nurse does things differently, and that's okay. As long as you're doing the precautions that your teacher teaches you and you show that you care, that's all that's gonna matter in the end. So I hope this video is helpful. I know it's my first video, I'm not the best at this yet, but I really just want to be honest. Rather, I just look at this in the future and see how much I've grown as a nursing student, but also that maybe we could just be a little family to really support each other, because us nursing students really have to stick together in this. So I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful holiday season, and just hopefully 2021 will be a little bit better. Of course, COVID's not gonna just end up disappearing, but we can still be there for each other. So that's all I have to say, and just good luck with everybody that's in nursing school or trying to get into nursing school. We got this.